Dirty, dangerous, a high risk of violence and self-harm. Life not on the outside world, but on the inside, in the care of the state. Life at Chelmsford Prison. Already under urgent notice, a rarely used protocol for the very worst prisons, Chelmsford has been failing on many levels for more than a decade.
It's one of the least safe prisons in the country, so consistently it comes out highest or the top 2 or 3 for rates of violence, rates of assaults between prisoners, rates of assaults on officers and rates of self-harm.
In a damning report, the inspector revealed 12 prisoners have died at Chelmsford since 2018, 8 self-inflicted deaths and 4 described as non-natural. It's the 4th consecutive inspection which has found significant increases in the rate of self-harm. More than half of prisoners had felt unsafe at some point during their stay at Chelmsford, and a dominant negative and damaging staff culture persists. One bereaved relative who didn't want to be identified told Channel 4 News her loved one was on remand in Chelmsford for a serious offence carried out, she said, during a mental health crisis. He'd never been in trouble before.
I'm one of the many individuals who've unnecessarily lost a loved one through suicide due to the appalling failings over many years of those who work at Chelmsford Prison and their indifference to the welfare of those for whom they have a duty of care. The end result of the stated failings is that those who should be held responsible are left to carry on with impunity, and so more lives continue to be lost.
We're spending £45,000 on average a person to put people into prison. Is this really the best we can do? Are we really getting value for money from that? And they're really not making any progress. The risk is when they come out, they're going to reoffend again. They're creating more victims and they're getting back on that treadmill of offending, getting into jail, coming out again, back to square one.
It is perhaps damning in itself that the recommendations of this report are so utterly basic. The inspector having to remind the prison it needs to be fit for purpose, it has to be clean, that violence levels need to be reduced. The fact that prisoners' safety cannot be guaranteed is evidence for many of a prison system which is completely broken, that goes way beyond the failings of one prison.
There is no accountability for failing to act on recommendations which are designed to safeguard prisoners' lives and to see change. This is a prison that has failed for many years and despite countless recommendations continues to fail, and it is not fit for purpose.
Do you think Chelmsford is a one-off?
I think Chelmsford, sadly, is indicative of a prison system in crisis. Across the country, there are failing prisons.
The government has announced more than £1 million will be spent on Chelmsford to improve security and living conditions, and it's reduced the number of prisoners by 10%.
There's a whole range of prisons, but also areas of the youth estate in particular, where I want to look very closely. I think there's examples of great practice right across the estate and in the youth estate, but there are also areas where we need to do better, and that's where I'm focused.
Rory Stewart, when he was in your department, he said that if violence levels weren't reduced, he would resign. Would you do so?
I'm not going to make commitments. I don't feel the need to echo Rory Stewart's commitments.
COVID restrictions has meant much less scrutiny of what was happening at prisons like Chelmsford, but full inspections have begun again. The question is, what will they reveal? Has the pandemic put more pressure on a system already under strain? And what does that mean for life behind bars?